Zarina Barwani, and I'm really excited to be here today. They say there's no formula for success, but what if there is? After countless conversations with entrepreneurs, I've noticed a pattern. Now, I'm on a mission to break it down and figure out exactly what makes a startup thrive. In the podcast, we'll explore the key ingredients, like funding, education, mentorship, and more, that contribute to an entrepreneur's success. We'll ask founders to weigh in on what factors matter the most in their cases, so you can focus on what really moves the needle in your own journey. Ready to crack the code? Let's dive into the entrepreneur's equation. Today we welcome Devi Sahny, the founder and CEO of Asend, a global education platform that's redefining how young people learn, grow, and find their purpose. Through personalized coaching and mentorship, Asend now helps students develop not just academic skills, but emotional intelligence, leadership, and clarity on who they want to become. Devi's journey is fascinating, from her own experiences as a student, young professional, to becoming an entrepreneur driven by the impact and transformation. She's built something that's not only innovative, but deeply human. So, hi Devi, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So I always like to start understanding entrepreneurial journeys with childhood. Tell me a little bit about yours.
So I grew up in Antwerp in Belgium, and I initially attended French school, le lycée français, up until I was 12 years old, and then I switched to an international school. I grew up, I think, in a very loving household, a little bit strict, not strict with like your typical things like grades, but like strict with your character, honesty, integrity, your values, I guess. My mom was like, I think, very much ahead of her time because in many ways she like tried to create experiences for my brother and I in ways that weren't conventional, like, sending your kids to camp or one summer she sent me and my brother to Serbia for a basketball camp where they'd make us train for like 6-7 hours a day. And in retrospect, that taught me discipline and grit. And then, she sent us to like a jewelry making camp where I learned how to use beads in funky ways to like make jewelry. And then I later started selling those pieces to my neighbors in Belgium. So in some ways, she just really wanted me to build my own interests and like give me basically a landscape of exposure through which I could build those skills.
Did she care a lot about school?
Yes and no. Like in middle school, things were really hard for me because I had just switched from a French school to an English school. And if in the French school, I wasn't academic at all because French grammar is like the toughest thing in the world. And, I wasn't academic. I was an average student. But then when I switched to the English school, I was really struggling in STEM and math. I was extremely poor as a math student, so much so that I was asked to repeat the grade when I was in 8th grade. And I still remember that day, and I was like feeling so depressed because my teacher, who was an amazing guy, he was like, "You might need to repeat." And I was like, "Oh no, like what am I gonna do?" And I told him I promised to work hard, So I ended up not repeating, and then I worked really hard in high school. And then in high school, 4 years later, I graduated valedictorian. So it was kind of like a really big shift from being really like the bottom, like the pits, really, like then to kind of graduating academically strong. But I would say academics didn't come easy to me at all. It was something that I had to work for and struggle with, but it did teach me that like everything is doable in a way if you have the right mentorship and if you have the right mindset.
I mean, graduating valedictorian, what motivated you?
I don't think it was a goal for me. I have really high standards for myself, especially in high school. I was very harsh on myself, which I don't know if it's a healthy thing, to be honest, because I see that sometimes with our students and I see the amount of pressure, the heaps of pressure, right, we put on ourselves. But for me, it was, I was really close to my grandmother growing up, and she's like this incredible woman. She grew up in Myanmar, and she was like literally the most charming lady you would ever meet. She could get her way of anything, and she always made me believe in myself. Like she said, you can do anything. It's just up to you. And like growing up, I'd have these like French homeworks or Flemish homeworks, and I'd put them at her desk, and I'd be like, "Can you review these?" And she'd be like, "Sure," but she didn't speak a word of French. So it's like her belief in me was so powerful that it basically forced me to believe in myself. And I think that's so important that, kids have that one person that really believe in them.
Yeah. Would you say you always loved education?
Education is such a, like, I feel like everyone has a vested interest in education, right? Because after all, we're all students of life. Like,
Yeah.
I might be in my 30s, but I learn from my students. I learn from you. When I met you a couple of months ago, I learned from you, you know, so, and I continue to learn from you, like how amazing this podcast is, right? So I feel like everyone has a relationship with education, but the relationship they have with education shouldn't just encompass their high school education or their middle school education or their grades. It should encompass lifelong education, right? And I feel like that for me is my why. I don't think I could do anything else. Like, I don't know what else I could do, frankly.
Well, you were a banker, right?
Yeah.
So how did that shift happen?
Yeah, those were interesting days. So when I was at Georgetown in college, I saw everyone get into investment banking, you know, and they were so like glamorized by this idea of like Goldman Sachs and M&A deals and the money of it, right? The glamour, the idea of working on, you know, deals like Walmart acquiring other companies. And I was quite interested by that because I saw the people who were like going into banking were super smart, and a lot of them were my mentors. So I said to myself, well, that's probably the right career for me. So I ended up doing my internship at Goldman Sachs and then got a job offer for 3 years there. And I loved it in the sense of the people. Like, I made some really good friends, some good mentors. What my old boss, Stephanie Cohen, who's now the CSO of Cloudflare, she's like still my mentor. We went to Davos together in January. So I think the connections are still very much there, but the nature of the work was like not for me. I would always look at the clock, like, when's the time to go home? And now I never go home. You know what I mean? So it's interesting.
What was that one moment in banking where you were like, no, I'm not going to do this?
There were like quite a few moments. I think the key was like I knew it wasn't me. Like, it wasn't in my DNA. And this might sound really silly, but like I remember the first day I got my card, like my badge, which said Devi Sahny, and it said the word employee. And my silly 21-year-old brain was like, I don't want to be an employee. Like, I want to be my own boss. Like, I want to do whatever I want when I want, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, I remember I was in the toilet washing my hands and I saw this, like, the badge, and I put it down for a second. I remember that word employee, like, sticking to me in bold. And I was like, I don't know if that's for me, you know? So I guess that was, like, the moment. But then the nature of the work was really not my thing. And, I was like, I gotta do something that's tangible, that's impactful, where I can see my value.
So it wasn't just banking. You didn't want to be an employee.
Yeah, as terrible as it sounds, yes, that's what I felt at that moment. I'm not, you know, now I look at it and I think it's quite silly and quite shallow of a comment to make, because employees do amazing things as well, and sometimes do even better than, you know, employers or bosses or CEOs. And being a CEO and an entrepreneur, it's a huge amount of pressure, and it's high stakes and very high, you know, failure rates. But the 21-year-old in me was like, I want to do things my own way. If that means I'm going to make less money, if that means I'm going to take more risks, if that means, you know, I'm going to fail more, like, I'm okay with it.
What made you so comfortable with taking these risks?
That's a really good question. I never thought of that. Would I say like I'm a risky person? I think I'm spontaneous. I'm a little bit impulsive, actually very impulsive. I can be emotional. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are, right? You're so close to your company, your baby, and I think combination of those kind of traits, and also sports. Like, growing up, I played a lot of sports. Even now, like, I do a lot of running, and I try to take that really seriously. And I think in sports you have to take a lot of risks as well with like now I'm less intense about it, but like basically how you improve, right? Like, I've always been motivated by improvement of myself, or so self-improvement, you know. But risks, I don't know actually where that came from. I don't know if I would say I'm a very risky person, but then when I think about my life, maybe I am. I don't know.
So you would say vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness for an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely not. I might even be too vulnerable sometimes. You know, when I moved here to Singapore, I heard so many no's. I heard so many people be like, you're 23, why would you start a business? Like, there's so many people doing education in Singapore, why would you do it? Like, really people like dismissing me and my ideas. And I think being vulnerable enough to say, you know, I might be wrong. Like, it might not be the right thing, but I'm going to try, you know?
Yeah.
I think we need more of that, to be honest.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your college journey.
Mm-hmm.
You're helping kids get into college, so your journey must have been quite impactful.
So college was interesting, right? So I first went to NYU. I didn't get into Georgetown. Georgetown was my dream school. And I went to NYU, and so I was there for freshman year. But while I was there, I was like, let me try again for Georgetown. Why not, right? And so I applied as a transfer, and I got in. And I was like so happy the day I got my acceptance letter from Georgetown. I didn't even think about it. I was like, you know that feeling when you cry out of happiness?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but it happened for me that day, and I was like, I have to go. So I went to Georgetown my sophomore year, and while I was there, I was like certainly pretty ambitious. Like, I wanted to do internships. The first semester I was there, I interned for John Boehner, who's the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Then I interned for the OECD that same year while I was taking classes. And then the next year I interned at the UN and PwC. And then the next summer I interned at Goldman. I was like so intense. I don't know if that's healthy, by the way, but I was so keen to learn about the workforce before I entered the workforce. And after all those internships, I was like, I don't know if I can work at a company. Like, I want to create a culture of my own, you know?
Yeah.
But I didn't listen to that because I was like, I might as well join Goldman. But in my senior year of college, I actually started a company for college students, tutoring other college students. Yeah. So I was a TA, a teaching assistant, and I noticed no one showed up to my TA sessions because they were in group. They wanted one-on-one support. So I actually started this little business where I was tutoring other college students, and I would rent these little rooms in the library, and the kids would like come in back and forth to the point where I was like not doing well in my exams because I was tutoring so much. And, you know, word got around and it became a little bit of a business, you know? Yeah. So that was quite cool because I was like, you know, I never noticed how important peer-to-peer learning was, you know?
But how did you know Georgetown was the school for you? Like, how do you help decide where students go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my reasoning for Georgetown may have not been the right reasoning, but growing up, my brother always wanted to go to Georgetown. And, you know, when you have an older sibling, you're like, oh, like, if he does this, I'm going to do this, right? And he was kind of my role model. And so the day he applied to Georgetown, and then I remember he had an interview with Georgetown. And the interviewer came to our house for the interview. And I opened the door, and I met the interviewer for a few minutes. His name was Ivan Glaskovac. He's still very much like a Hoya. And he impressed me on Georgetown. He was like, Davey, the culture of Georgetown is so great. In just 4 minutes of conversation, I knew that was the school for me. Yeah. And there's some things like you just know with your gut, like is right or wrong. And now in my older age, I'm learning to listen to that. And like if your gut says something and there's no reason, just do it. For my students now at Asend, it's also very similar. Like we're their cheerleaders of our kids. So what they want to do, we will create a pathway for. So strange example, but like if someone says I want to go into Stanford or Yale, like we will connect them with someone who's been there, someone who's worked there, like create the pathway for them to learn if that's indeed the right choice for them.
So tell me a little bit about your company, Asend Now.
So Asend Now was started in 2018. I had just moved to Singapore, and I left Goldman Sachs, and then I said to myself, I gotta do something on my own. And honestly, I didn't have a business idea. I was like, what can I do that can make me money and make me happy and that I'm good at, right? And I didn't have any ideas other than what I had done in college. And what I had done in college was tutor. So I thought, let me be a tutor, right? So I put my name on all these websites that do tutoring, like Champion Tutor, some others, like where you just put like freelance tutors, right? Yeah. And I started tutoring kids, going home to home in Singapore. And I was learning a lot about what kids needed, what parents wanted, what aligned, what didn't align. And I was teaching anything you could think of, like from AP biology to like IB English, college counseling. And through that journey, I learned a couple of things. One was, in my own journey of entrepreneurship, I was like, why don't we not teach entrepreneurship to kids?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is that not important? So I ended up building an entrepreneurship program. And I ended up saying, oh, why don't we take expertise from all the teachers in the world and build an online business? And then we built the business online. So eventually, over a couple of years, we had, like, for me being the tutor, 150 teachers,
Wow.
all online. And these were some amazing teachers that were working with, like, our kids all over the world. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So then our business grew even more. And then we ended up adding our second part of our business, which is Edge. And that's like a life skill program that schools purchase to use in their curriculum. So it's not like a journey that made sense, really. Like, I didn't plan it to be this way. Sometimes I look back to, like, pre-entrepreneur Davey and post-entrepreneur, and I'm like, oh my god, like, such different people. Like, so I don't know, like, do I think I'm more of an entrepreneur, an educator? A bit of both, I would say, like a mix of both. But it's been an interesting journey. It's been 8 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
But a lot of your company is virtual, right? So how do you manage creating like personalized experiences for everyone?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because right now the world's become really virtual. And when we created Asend, we wanted to understand, how do kids your age and even younger than you learn, how do they consume information? And we asked them, and we started researching what kind of consumption really made it most effective, comfortable, convenient, but also with the best teachers in the world. And our only answer was online. In terms of personalized experiences, one of the things we love to do is have, like, a mentor for every learner. And the mentor has nothing to do with the student's academics or passion project or college counseling. It's just someone they can talk to and be open with and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm anxious about this exam, or I need help here. And we really want our students to feel comfortable, feel like they have that one person who oversees the whole journey. I would say, like, on average, most of our students have like 6-7 teachers from when they start till when they graduate, you know? And it's a lot of students, it's a lot of teachers, but what's really great is we as Asend, we can sort of ensure every department is taken care of, whether it's like college counseling or academics or profiling or whatever it is, right? That's sort of how we try to keep it personalized. We try to make sure we know the student, we know what they need, and we let them tell us too.
Yeah.
We don't just say, hey, you need to do this, go do it.
What's like a memorable thing a student has taught you?
Many. I've learned so much from so many students. I think what stands out, yesterday I met one of our students, Moon. She's in 10th grade. She's at UWC, and I've worked with her since she's a 5th grader.
Wow.
She started her first business when she was in 5th grade called Moon's Cuisine, which made, I think, like 15,000 to 20,000 SGD in, like, selling, like, healthy food to different homes. And I met her after a couple of years. Like, she's still been our student, but I just haven't met her in person. She's also won a lot of Shark Tank competitions and things. And, yesterday she shared with me something that I thought was really interesting, the way she phrased it. So I was asking her, I was like, what do you want to be when you grow up, And I was telling her that I was in Korea last week, and I had dinner with the CEO of BTS, like the band, and like some of my friends there, and I didn't even know what BTS was. I'm so uneducated and ill-informed. But he paid for our dinner. He hosted our dinner, and I was like, who is this person?
How did you even meet him?
I have a lot of friends in Korea, and like some of their kids are my students, and so we did a big dinner, and I didn't know who it was. Everyone was like I was so silly. So anyway, I was talking to Moon, and she was like, Davey, I've decided I'd like to be a K-pop artist. Wow. And I was like, oh, like, do you think, like, what's the reason, And she taught me something, because she said, it's not really about the output or outcome of becoming a K-pop artist. It's about the routine and discipline that the K-pop team undergoes to become who they are. And that grit. And I want to develop those skills, and the reason I want to do that is via something I enjoy, which is singing and dancing. So she taught me something, which is sometimes you do things for the experience and the skills as opposed to just, like, the outcome.
Yeah. What keeps you disciplined then?
Am I disciplined? I think in some ways I'm disciplined, in some ways I'm not. I like routine. I like structure. I've been called very rigid. I like to sleep early. I like to wake up early. I like to, as much as I can, limit as much technology as I use, because being a founder and I'm also on the board of Georgetown and Duke's Education, and now most recently my high school, Antwerp International School. So I'm kind of all over the place, right? I'm kind of chaotic. And so when it comes to my schedule and my own time, I like to be really not chaotic. But overall, yeah, I would say maybe I'm a 7, 8 out of 10 discipline.
But if you're so used to routine, how do you deal with uncertainty?
That's a good question. Your routine is something you kind of keep at the back of your head, but in entrepreneurship, uncertainty just comes to you at all sides, right? I'm going into Bhutan 2 days, we're doing work with the king and the country, and that just sprang up on me a week and a half ago, and you take the opportunities that you get and you fly, and if you fail, it's okay. I think the other thing about is learning how to say no too. So that's a really big weakness of mine, because I really love what I do, probably too much. So I struggle with saying no, because especially when it comes to meeting my students, which now I don't know a lot of our students anymore because we have hundreds all over the world and haven't met them personally. So I'm trying to work on managing my time and prioritizing my time a bit better.
You've mentioned that education is linear, but life isn't. What do you mean by that?
Oh, yeah, that was a good line. I forgot I said that. Did I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so here's the thing. I feel like education is, in some ways, totally going in the wrong way, right? They teach you exactly what to learn, how to apply it on the test, how to take the test, then you go to college, then you get a degree, and then you go in a workforce. But life doesn't work like that anymore. The chronology of education, I feel, is almost making students less creative and less adaptable in a way. And I think that, if you look at tests, right, like SAT or ACT, and I don't know if I should say this, but I'll say it anyway. The SAT and the ACT are tests that want every student to think the same way, because they have multiple choice questions that they want answered in a certain way, and they presume a certain type of thought process to get to that answer, right? But if you want to be a creative thinker, you don't necessarily think in that way, and that actually makes you innovative and makes you an entrepreneur and makes you inspiring, right? So I feel like there needs to be a balance between the linear pieces of education, the experiential parts, and the skills. Not every... You're 15? 16?
Turning 16.
Oh my God. Not every 16-year-old can do a podcast like you so confidently. That's not common because education's so linear.
Yeah. Do you think AI will change education?
Oh, AI is already changing education, right? I was talking to a teacher the other day, and she was like, I'm feeling really helpless about AI. And I was like, why? And she said, well, I use AI as a teacher to do to create the homework. Then I know my students are using AI to fill in the homework. Then I know that I'm going to use AI to create their homework. And then I know the students are going to use AI to reply to the comments. So it's like a robot talking to robot. And I don't know how productive that is, to be honest. I think that there's certain elements of AI that are extremely productive and helpful, but are we losing cognitive function, and are we outsourcing thought with AI and emotion and feeling? I don't know where to draw the line.
Yeah. Why do you think normalizing entrepreneurship is so important for children?
Oh, I can talk about that for days. I don't know how much time you have. But no, I think entrepreneurship for me is not only about making a lot of money. That's a byproduct if you do a good job. Entrepreneurship for me is problem solving. It's resilience. It's empathy. It's taking a problem in the world and saying, hey, let me look at that problem with the lens of opportunity, right? Yeah. I think it's so important to show students that they can be entrepreneurs if they want to. They don't have to. And I also think the definition of entrepreneurship shouldn't be restricted to just business. Everyone's entrepreneurial in their own way. A teacher can be really entrepreneurial, like during COVID, right? A nonprofit founder can also be very entrepreneurial. A parent can be very entrepreneurial. When I look back at my mom, and I'm like, wow, like she was pretty entrepreneurial in the way she raised me, you know? Yeah. So I think the definition should be expanded and not restricted.
I mean, you've helped lots of like kids start businesses through Shark Tank. Which ones continued?
Oh, that's a really good question. There are 2 or 3 that have continued, into my knowledge, even after the kids have gone to university.
Oh, wow.
So one is Intern Ed, which is Portia Hartono's business, where she started a company to get other students internships. I think she started it when she was in 9th grade, and now she's a junior in college. Yeah. And she did great. She saw a problem. She came to me and she was like, I need an internship. And I was like, I don't know how I can help you. I can ask my friends. Then I was like, why don't you start a business that helps others get internships? And then, you know, we built the whole business. Yeah. So that was one that has continued. There's another student who started an app to get like grocery delivery for elderly in the US. That's continued. Now she's graduated college, I believe. So that's continued over like 4+ years after high school. I don't know if many have like continued that long, but I know that the entrepreneurial spark hasn't died. Yeah. Usually kids do entrepreneurship or our programs because they want to win the Shark Tank money. Yeah. But when they win that, or if they don't win that, they're like, oh, actually, this is kind of cool. Like, I want to do something my own, you know? Yeah.
Do you remember my Shark Tank?
Oh, I definitely remember that. You were one of the, was it 6th grade or 5th grade?
I think so. During COVID.
It was during COVID. You won. I remember that. I remember how driven you were and how kind of open you were to new ideas and how creative you were. And I wondered, did that help you, that experience, not only winning, for doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, it did.
Do you feel like entrepreneurship is something in your blood?
I think for my dad, he's very entrepreneurial. So I guess I've like grown up around that. So yeah. Well, you mentioned that everyone has a teacher that changes their life. What was the one teacher that changed your life?
I would say for me, it was my basketball coach. His name is Peter van der Bovenkamp. He's in Belgium. And he was so amazing. He was also my IT teacher, tech. Back then we had an IT class, and you would learn like type to code or something, like, which is like how to type really quick and just weird things, which now you don't learn, and how to build your games and stuff. And he was just such an amazing mentor, and he inspired me a lot off the court, on the basketball court. Like, he always believed in me, and he never hesitated, like, his belief. Nigel Gardner is another mentor of mine. He's actually part of the teaching team now at Asend now, which is so cool because he was my teacher and my mentor. Wow. And he was like the DP coordinator in high school. So he was really motivating. He was like, you can do anything you want. I think it's really important kids have that person, and I find that a lot of them don't. Like, this weekend I spent meeting maybe like 13 of our students, and 1 or 2 of them were like, I don't know if I'm good enough. And it's really heartbreaking when I see that, because I feel that instead of inspiring the kids, sometimes teachers demoralize them in an effort to inspire, but it gets taken the wrong way.
What do you think's a misconception teachers have with education?
I feel like teachers are the heroes of our generation. They mean well. They want to help. They're in it. Why are they in it is because of knowledge sharing, knowledge generation. But I think sometimes teachers are overstretched. They're burnt out. They have too many things to do that sometimes they're not able to give that individualized attention to every single learner. And sometimes that comes across as maybe demoralizing to students. I think I was actually having this conversation today with a school. Teachers should be part of the dialogue on the future of learning. Teachers are not just Muppets that like get to just deliver content here and there. They should be part of the say. And the trouble with education is there are too many stakeholders. There's parents, there's teachers, there's students, there's principals, there's investors. Like, there are too many people. And so somewhere along the line, something gets lost. And one incentive of one of these stakeholders is not met. right?
I mean, like, parents and students' needs, they're so different, right? How do you, like, manage them?
Oh, that's so difficult. I mean, it depends on the parent, right? But some parents and students, like, I mean, they don't even communicate. Like, I have one student who hasn't had a conversation with her mom in 5 years. They haven't looked each other in their eyes. They don't have a relationship, right? So it's really hard because sometimes every parent wants the best for their kid. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
But sometimes kids don't see that, and sometimes what parents think is the best for their kid is not always the best for their kid. I go through this too. Like, I have 2 parents, and sometimes my parents criticize me, and I don't think it's the right way to say something, or maybe it's not the right it's not the right thing, but they mean well, right? It took me a long time to learn that. Like, when I was your age, I'd like go into a tantrum and I'd be like, why are you saying that? But you learn, and it's not easy to manage students and parents because they have completely different incentives sometimes.
Yeah. So going back to Asend now, what were some of the struggles you faced starting it?
Oh, so many. Where do I start? Well, there were a lot of struggles, right? So one is, like, I came to a new country, Singapore, where education is valued very highly, but I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a network. I didn't have friends here. I really started from scratch. I might have known 2 or 3 people, which are my parents' friends, but they probably, like, ghosted me when my parents are not in town. Like, they couldn't care less. I shouldn't say that, but it's true. Actually, one of their kids now is my student.
Oh.
8 years later. Yeah. But, like, at the time, it's very interesting, by the way, when people, always be mindful of the people in your life that will help you when you're nothing and when you're something, and see how that changes.
Yeah.
Because I have reflected on this, but when I started, there were a lot of challenges. I had to convince parents that online education was normal, was actually better. That was a challenge because the parents I was working with and the students, they only wanted me as a tutor, and I was the tutor, right? And then I'd say, but no, you have to work with an examiner because the examiner knows better than me. I'm not an examiner, right? So I had to convince that new mode of online education. There was also a credibility thing, like, yeah, I'm ex-Goldman Sachs, I'm ex-Georgetown, but I'm not a teacher. I look very young. People say, they would look at me and be like, what experience do you have? Right, even today when I go into a meeting, right, and, like, sometimes if I have my hair up, and, some people would look at me and be like, who are you? Like, why are you here? And then when I start speaking and they find out I'm the CEO, then the face changes, the expressions change, right? The other day I was at a Shark Tank in Hong Kong, and I came a bit early to set up the event, and one of the judges for the Shark Tank, he's like a YPO guy, and he was like, he came into the room and he was like, hey, you, change that chair this way, like, switch it this way. He said that to me, which is fine. Like, he's like, move it this way, move it, like, in a very, like, aggressive, abrasive tone. So I did it, and I moved it, and then we started the event within an hour, and it was time for the CEO speech. So they called me up to the stage, and as I was talking, I could see him looking at me, and his face got red because he realized that he thought I was an intern, I think. And then at the end of the event, he came to me and he's like, I'm so sorry for the way I spoke to you. I really shouldn't have spoken to you that way. And I said, no worries, don't worry. But to me, respect to everyone should be the same, right?
Yeah.
Even if I was an intern, right? Who cares, right? But I think that there are a lot of challenges in the world of business. If you're a woman, if you look a certain way, you have to navigate that intelligently. I've learned over the years how to take it as a joke instead of take it as a criticism. It's also about your energy and how you take things. Like, I don't take things very seriously. I think they're funny, like, but I think it really, you do need a bit of thick skin as an entrepreneur. Like, the other challenge I had when I started Asend is I remember pitching to the MOE here in Singapore. And again, I don't know if I should say this, but I will. Well, I'm sharing all my secrets with you. And I pitched her my idea, and the MOE lady looked at me and she was like, if you pitch this to me again, I would tell you to talk to my hand. And I was like, oh my God. And I remember like bawling my eyes out after that meeting, and just like really demotivating, right?
Yeah.
So there were like challenges. There were a lot of naysayers, a lot of non-believers, a lot of people that I guess I thought would help me in the early years and like spread my info and like, you know, share what I'm doing with other friends and stuff. They didn't really do it. And now it's like, oh, now can I help you? So it's very interesting. I'm always a believer, like, I don't have many friends and I don't want many friends. I want a couple that like ride or die.
Yeah.
The rest of the people I'm not like close to. Like, even though I think a lot of people would say that I'm friends with them, and I am friends, but I don't think I have like I have very few friends that I trust for the rest of my life, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I am as a human. So, yeah, I think there were a lot of challenges, like, you know, growing the business, like even getting an EP here was tough. I was really working like a crazy girl, going home to home, eating like my meal on the MRT like hidden because you're not allowed to eat on it, like stuff like that. But I look back at those days, and especially when I'm back in Singapore like this week, I'm like amazed in a way, and I'm like, wow, like that girl was fearless. I hope I still have at least a bit of that hustle still in me.
So how do you look for your team and co-founders?
So I don't have a co-founder, but I do have 2 people on a management team that are like literally my rocks in this company. So one is Pavan, who's our CPO, who you may have met.
Yeah.
He is our chief product officer and managing partner, and he handles things more on the edge side of the business. And then there's Ariana, who is head of performance coaches and teachers. So she heads about almost 185 teachers. And they are just great. I mean, how did I find them? Pavan's the husband of one of my very good high school friends, and he and I met maybe in 2020. He was looking for an internship, and I didn't want anyone. So I was like, fine, I'll give you an unpaid internship. And he turned out to be great. And after a month, I'm like, you're hired. And now he's like a managing partner. Ariana I met through her husband, who was one of our teachers, and I met her maybe 6 years ago, and then she became a teacher, and then she just impressed me week after week and month after month, her resilience, her resourcefulness, and yeah, today she's just, I mean, she's 2 kids, young kids, 2 under 2, and she's just still crushing it in her career, and I'm just like so amazed by her, you know, like how can someone do all of these things at the same time? So those folks I kind of got through my network, but I would say it's not easy finding talent with the right values, especially if I'm really honest, my generation, they're quite lazy. They don't want to work hard. Grit's not a thing. They want to enjoy life. Nothing wrong with that, but if you're in a fast-moving, growing company, you want to have someone that's a bit more proactive and quick. So it hasn't been super easy to find like the right fit for people in my team, but I would say most of the people on my team have stayed for years and years and years. And so that's been really nice because I think the culture of the team of Asend is really special.
Yeah. What do they teach you about people and trust?
Well, I have a lot of trust issues with people. And it's not that I've been like betrayed or anything. To be honest, I haven't had like bad experiences. I just find it hard to trust people and to trust they're going to do things that they say. It's a trait I'm working on, I guess. I do trust few people, and those people I trust implicitly. But, you know, being a leader, it's learning also how to let go and be able not to micromanage, because micromanaging is a form of insecurity in a way, right? It's like a CEO insecurity, right? Because you don't trust your team to do it, so you just go into it, right? But yeah. I think being an entrepreneur for 8 years has taught me when to react, when to let go, when to not respond, when to put my team in new positions and let them fly, right? I recently added an amazing colleague on my team, and his potential really excites me, and I'm probably going to throw him in like some new situations and just be like, go try it out, and if you fail, it's okay, you know? I find, you know, one of the things I'm maybe not as good at and maybe should be better at is like, how do I mentor my team and make them grow? But when I sit in meetings and I literally stay silent for 1 hour and my team runs the show is like the best part of my day, you know? And there's so many meetings I sit on now where I'm just like, you know, and like they're just doing, you know, the meeting. And so yeah, it's taught me a lot about people skills. It's taught me about how we're like in a employee economy now. The employees have the power, not the employers. And people come to work with their humanity checked in, not checked out. And so I think one of our Georgetown board meetings, someone was talking about humanity and how the culture of corporate is becoming so much more human in a way because the employees are getting a say, right? So I think we're working with it. We're a remote first team, but it's taught me a lot.
What are some values you instill in your team?
Good question. I would say trust, transparency, kindness, and it's not really a value, but like a we over an I. Like, if you mess up, we mess up. If you do well, we do well. If you close a deal, we have closed a deal, right? We celebrate each other. We support each other. In 8 years, there have been less than 2 or 3 conflicts with team members. And I'm really proud of that because I'm so conflict avoidant. Like, I never have conflicts. Almost never, actually. Like, it's not in my DNA. Like, I'm not kind of aggravating and don't have really a temper. I don't get like irritated super easily, but like I think in a team to have had really not many conflicts for 8 years is such a huge success. Have I hired for experience over culture? Yes, and it hasn't worked out. So I've learned that it's more important to hire for culture than it is to hire for what's on the resume. It took me years to learn that. I've hired people that on resume would kill to have, but then the culture was not good. Like the way they spoke to other employees or, the way they gaslit, right? And so it's very hard actually to hire, and talent management, it's like one of the hardest things.
So then what's your definition of success?
My definition of success, I would say to be like aligned spiritually is very important to me. A lot of people are surprised to know that like I'm really religious. I grew up in a Sikh family, but my parents are not really religious. My brother is not religious, but I'm like I don't go to sleep without praying every night. Even if I'm on a plane, I'm like, if I forget, I like wake up and I'm like, oh, something feels off. So I think that for me is really important. I think, doing the right thing when the right thing is hard is like success to me. I think impact is really a big part of success, like seeing you guys, like my students, thrive and acquire skills and gain confidence and just crush it in their life in whatever way they want to, right? For my students to see the best versions of themselves, that's success to me. And I think happiness, right? Like being okay with yourself, like being letting go and being okay with who you are and protecting your energy. I think energy is a really big thing. A lot of people recently come to me and they're like, oh, Davey, you have such good energy. And I'm like, yeah, but it took me 8 years because like I learned how to protect it. I learned how to keep it safe with the right people for my energy to thrive. So yeah, I think I would say for me that's success. Family, love, it all kind of encompasses that, but it starts for me with spirituality.
Then how do you decide how to spend your energy?
Well, I don't know if I always spend my energy the right way. As a CEO, right, there are a lot of things that a normal CEO wouldn't do, right? Like if you have hundreds of customers, like spending time with each individual customer, like logically a CEO might not do that, right? But I like to do that. But I do that because it gives me energy, but it also gives me insight and gives me ideas and it gives me, kind of creative flow as well, right? But I mostly do it because I think it's the right thing to do and it makes me happy, right? Do I always spend my energy on like things I should? Probably not. I'm getting better at it, but I'm really distracted and I have a lot of ADHD. So I've been called chaotic. I've been called, like a chaotic person, which I am I? I don't know. But I kind of thrive in chaos, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Davey. Now we're going to do a rapid fire round, so you should answer these without thinking too hard. What's one word your students would use to describe you?
Supportive.
If you weren't running Asend now, what would you be doing?
Maybe something in sports. Like, I'd love to be a runner, but I don't think I'm quick enough.
Your go-to productivity hack?
A phone on airplane mode.
One subject you wish more students loved?
Philosophy.
Finish the sentence. Education should be
Meaningful, purposeful, help students be the best versions of themselves.
What is one skill an entrepreneur should have?
The ability to embrace failure.
Thank you, Davey. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for sticking around till the end. I hope you found this episode valuable. You might think there's no formula for success, but it seems like we're getting closer to cracking it with each conversation. If you have any suggestions on who I should interview next, feel free to drop me a message at my email, which will be in the bio. And remember, the insights you've learned today could be the very thing that moves the needle in your own entrepreneurial journey. Catch you in the next one.